roundness to them, but they're not they're not um, they're not the normal kind of roundness. Actually, I do want to move it down a little bit though, because this is a little bit too kind of perky. So actually, let's shrink it just a tad so we can get so I can work on the topology from here a little bit easier. See, at this point now I can just add in edge loops. Boom! Like that. And then I can just tweak it. Now, when you're doing organics like characters and stuff, um, you want to think about the flow of the character. Um, that's a really important thing to keep in mind, is how the topology ties off and how it flows into each other, and you really do want to think about it like a flow. Um, and I'm probably going to want to add more geometry here later, but this is good enough for now. And in fact, I can go ahead and throw in that leg edge loop. See, there's actually here. Let's throw in a loop down here, and then just tie it to it. Yeah, there we go. So now we have that geometry that we wanted perfectly in place. And like I said, we're gonna be adding more and more geometry to this, probably. So, but you can see, like, if I just only put in geometry here, in this one spot, with this one loop, the rest of the breast can suffer because of it. Because there's not that accompanying geometry like on this side. So you'll notice that that's an issue. So we're already at 652 triangles for the whole thing. So poly count wise, we're doing pretty alright. We're doing, it's not too bad, not too shabby. We will definitely be adding more and more, obviously, but it's good to keep in mind how much you're using while you're working. Otherwise, you could go way over or end up having so little definition without really realizing how little you actually have that it will be an issue. Now, like I was saying before, this is one of those points where you can actually have a triangle and it can be very useful. And it's very useful in this spot because of how the leg. Oops, here's a spare one, spare vert that was there. Because of the way that the leg bends and moves, um, there the geometry here needs to crease on itself, and a triangle is a great way to actually create a crease like that. Um, it's actually all it's really good for. You'll see oftentimes if you put in like a triangle on the face, if you don't put it in the right spot, when the character smiles um, or whenever the cheek is deformed, it can uh, it can like point out really weird. So that's something you really don't want to have when you're working on a character like this. With the face. Um, any character with a face, really. I mean, all characters have faces, of course, but um, so so at this point, I'm just sort of tweaking in this geometry that I added, making sure I actually get use out of it. Let's pull this in a little bit, try to even out the spacing. Um, will be adding in some more geometry here, especially when I get to the back. So let's try and just make sure that everything is in places that we want it to be in. And I can add in a little bit. So, A.B.A has a very pronounced chest here, rib cage. So let's actually go ahead and do that right now. Let's just throw in the rib cage, and we need to really get the point across of how bony she is, and sort of how much, you know, really force that silhouette of how bony and stark and muscular she is. And I also need to think about how much geometry I have going into the arms here. Do I want more? Do I want less? I can always tweak it later, but it can be a bit of a chore to actually do that. So let's go ahead and actually start forming our abdominal wall muscle strip, sort of like this. And pull this out just a little bit. And remember to try to keep the flow, like I was saying. See how this just flows, feels really natural all the way around. You want to try to keep that with everything you do. So let's go ahead and throw this in here. And I want this to kind of go to fit into the rest of her body. And actually let's retie this edge up here so that we can get that to look a little bit better and fold a little bit better. Try to make it fit more of what we wanted to do rather than what it's actually doing. So that's basically how you retopologize right there. You just cut in and delete what you don't want. It does take a little bit of planning though. And sometimes you just mess around with it and see what you want. And so here we're going to pull her in to get that point across of how emaciated and skinny she is. You know, and now it doesn't need much. Just a nice little touch is all you really need. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's her stomach. Really don't need to do too much with it, although I will probably do a little bit of tweaking in here in a little bit. But that's fine. We can just work with this for now. Remember to keep her entire, as many angles as you can when doing silhouette work like this. The thing that I was trying to do with A.B.A is try to sort of redesign her in a sense that you can still recognize who the character is at a glance, but also to fit her within the TF2 character silhouette scheme. And so you can see how I did that with how she's sort of mannish in this pose, and this pose you can see a little bit more from her side. I didn't try to go specifically one-to-one pyro, or else, you know, that would have just been like a retexturing and it would have looked terrible anyways. What I was trying to go for instead was a general silhouette that fits the general theme of the character in terms of proportions and how he looks from certain angles, and get the feel of the character basically, and translate it to the character design from Guilty Gear. And the way I'm doing that is I'm sort of forcing a character-specific silhouette. So what we get here is we get a very unique character silhouette that ends up being more pronounced, more characteristic in what she is and who she is. So here we have the side view from so far, and actually looking pretty good. Uh, let's go ahead and work on her legs now. Now her legs are bound up with bandages about halfway down to her shoes. Um, and at this point, I want to make a decision about how I want to do the bandages. Like I have to, um, or else I will run into issues later. Um, I think at this point it would look best if I textured it or if I modeled it. So um, let's go ahead and model it. Yeah. Um, so generally, the way that we want to do this, first let's get the general shape of her foot and bandages here. So let's cut in a loop down here somewhere to her get some foot space. And yeah, let's just use these two faces and just extrude them. Um, Now, obviously, you can't really get much of a feel for the character's shoes down here in my drawings, but there's quite a few character references that I've looked at for her for this particular for her feet, and there's quite a lot of reference for these characters with art books and all sorts of crazy things. So I do need to keep track of how long this is taking because otherwise I'm going to have a very long video that's going to be incredibly boring. If it hasn't bored you guys to tears already. Yeah, so this is about the general feel that I want for the feet. Um, so let's throw in another edge loop up here, and we're gonna pull this in actually a little bit so we can get that kind of girly, dainty little leg thing going on. Oops, you know what? I didn't take advantage of this back poly line that I did in here at all. So I need to do that, don't I? So I will be taking periodic breaks with this, but I think at this point we're getting the idea of the video across, and we're starting to get the idea of what I'm working with here. I will be recording all of this, like I said, um, so there's absolutely nothing that's going to be missed, and obviously people can always ask me what I'm working on and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So, um, that's not going to be an issue down the road, I believe, hopefully. Um, so let's go ahead and start throwing in something for bandage. Um, Now the way I want to do this is I want 3 strips, basically. And let's say we're gonna take one of these, one of these pairs, and we're gonna cut it off there, um, because I want this to actually wrap around. And it's going to be a little bit tricky to do this, but so first thing we want to do is we actually want to get the definition of the bandage. Now, we don't need to worry about making it ultra detailed. We just need enough to get the feel of what we're working with across. We have to think about how we're going to do the topology. Again, this is something that we're going to mess around with, so it's just going to take a little bit of work. You want to keep